is being recorded, so really appreciate it. So we'll be loading it up and sending it out to other colleagues to see from about actually becoming a mediator, which is the call about today. So what I'll do is I'll be going through some slides which we talk about what is mediation. We'll also be talking about what the course looks like over that period of time, and then we've got a lovely glowing report at the end by one of our colleagues that's attended one of our kind of groups before. So we've got Joe Lakin that we'll see a video of later from before as well. So what we do is I'll dive straight in. Please feel free when I'm presenting. If you've got a question, just shout out and ask from there. We're kind of, as we walk along, we've got a nice small group today. So let's have a look and dive in. So we're looking today about becoming a mediator. So to give a bit more detail about us at Inspirational Coaching Limited. So we work on basically what's called 5 pillars. So in a cultural transformational area, we work on the 5 pillars there today. We're going to cover mediation, which we'll cover off today, but we work with colleagues about training colleagues to be in facilitation, or we go and work with clients from a facilitation point of view. Mediation we're going to touch on today, so I'll hold that back. Leadership, we work with colleagues through our ILM programs and also our CPD accredited programs. So from a leadership point of view, and it goes in a title, coaching. Of course, we do coaching. So we do individual coaching through our experienced coaches. And then also we train people through the ILM programs, and we do a 1-day CPD coaching module as well. And then the last one, because we're so passionate about transformation, is around modernising HR policies. The old policies we see as quite draconian, out of date, whereas the newer ones we see are much more helpful and supportive. So from that point of view. So that's what we're looking at today, which we're going to kind of touch through. So in the chat function, just to get our fingers going, I know some people are having lunch, etc. In your views, what is mediation? So just in the chat function, have a go. What is mediation in your eyes or your views? So it'd be great to see some views about what is mediation, because there's so many variants on it. So what do we think mediation is? Great. So we've got, and welcome, I think saw Karen. Karen, welcome to the call. Great to have you here.
Hi.
Hello. So let's just go through in our chat function what we find. So Franco, thank you so much. Find a compromise. A solution to a dispute, helping people agree a way forward. Yes, yeah, we're getting there. Helping to resolve conflict between people. When we come to a mutual agreement relating to a dispute, beautiful. So mutual agreements from that point of view. So these are really good things that we're looking to help from a mediator. We cover all of these parts off when we go through our training session. And the other bit there, when we think about that mediator point, is about impartial and independent from kind of that conflict situation. So we've got some ideas there that we know what mediation start to look at. So let's have a look at what kind of the other definitions of mediation is, so we get a really understanding from that perspective. So workplace mediation, how we train people, is completely voluntary. So what we're looking for is a softer side before we get into that formal arrangement through grievance, etc. It's a softer approach, and by having it voluntary, people are committed to say, actually, I want to resolve this and I want to sort this out. It's confidential, so we really encourage confidentiality, and it's one of our 5 principles that we work to. And we're looking for a way to resolve informal or formal conflict. The best bit about mediation is getting in there early, rather than after the event when a grievance has happened, etc. We can still do that, but it's harder to work through. Like today, we're going to talk you through about actually the course that we offer and work through, but it's a professionally trained colleague. In 2020, the CIPD produced a report saying that 50% of the time, line managers make situations worse. Now, it's not them being malicious or rude or wrong. It's what they think is good of, let's just chuck 2 people in a room, they'll sort it out. But I think from our experience and the people on the call today, what we noticed is if you have a stronger person in there and a more reserved person, the stronger person will always dominate, and the line manager will always go, well, actually, you've both agreed, when the reserved person just wants to get out of the room. What we look at is we're impartial, so we don't take sides or there's no judgment, and we're independent from that point of view. The mediator and what we do in our course, we can train from you looking after two people, so we call two parties, or we also train on the course around group mediation, which is becoming more and more popular since the pandemic. We've seen with groups and teams. The job is for us to uncover kind of issues or concerns, and we always talk and say there's three versions of the truth. There could be party one's version of the truth, party two's version. Our job as the mediator is to uncover the truth so both parties can see that perspective. We literally want to make sure that all the parties, we clarify opinions, so they both get to walk in each other's shoes, and that's super powerful techniques that we use to allow colleagues to walk in each other's shoes to see what are the true issues. And then the last bit which we look at is we're trying to form a process of how they go back into the office or remote working, how they're going to work together for the future. We work heavily on future, not past, but future, but how they're going to work together. What does it look like back a week or a month later when they're working together? Now, what we do say as a caveat, we're not magicians on the course. We're not going to suddenly have a relationship where people could be a 2 out of 10, they've scored each other. We could get them to kind of 5, 6, 7s. Sometimes we have people like 8 out of 10. But what we're looking to do is get that repair work that they're moving their relationship forward. That's imperative and really, really key. So what's the benefits to you and an organisation and colleagues of being in mediation? First of all, the colleague is in control of the issue or concern. If we took traditional policies, a grievance, for example, the colleague gives away that responsibility and control to someone else to be the judge and jury. Whereas mediation, the person's back in control, they can have a good dialogue with the other party, there's a professional working with them to make sure they gain control, which is super important. Mediation is a lot quicker than traditional kind of formal procedures. So, for example, Jenny's on the call today, but we could be meeting with a colleague next week and be doing mediation within less than a week. A formal process in the UK can on average take between 3 to 6 months just to get an outcome. So think about that hurt that people will be going through if they did the formal route, how much time, how much cost to the organisation, presenteeism, and then also productivity takes a hit. It's far cheaper than the formal route, as we said. It provides a safe and supportive place, having a professional as an independent person working with the colleagues. And also it creates that psychological safe place. And I'll show you in a minute how we do the day as a mediation and what we train on our course. As we said, mediation is confidential, and we give the colleagues the choice at the end of who they would like to share details with. If they don't want to share it, they don't share it with anybody else, but we give them that control about who they'd like to share information with. Mediation is there to preserve relationships, whereas if we go that formal route, we know that people gather allies, they gather more detail, they become hypersensitive, hypervigilant, and then it gets out of control. Whereas what we're looking to do is really preserve those relationships. And mediation shows a proactive culture than a reactive culture. And we're looking really there about colleague well-being. And what happens a lot in the formal process, people forget that these colleagues have families, friends that are also affected through the process. So that's the benefits we're looking at mediation. So the traditional procedures, we feel that are failing colleagues and organisations. So mediation, we're looking to weave in before we even get to these issues. So bullying, grievance, harassment, or disciplinary policies. What we notice through our experience is the policy is applied first, not the issue. So, for example, a colleague might go, I would like to go through the bullying process. An organisation would usually on average go, OK, we'll now apply the bullying process. However, that colleague may not have been bullied. It may be just a word or it might be a phrase. What we're looking to do with mediation is look at the issue, not the process, which is super, super important. And I don't mean to be funny, but grievance or bullying, harassment and disciplinary policies, colleagues 9 times out of 10 following these processes do not get what they want. So 9 times out of 10, they've gone through that hurt, the pain, the time, etc., and they don't get what they want. So let's start to think about actually the cost to an organisation or cost to colleagues. So ACAS produced a really, really good report a couple of years back. So on average in the UK, conflict costs most kind of across the UK £26.5 billion a year. That's just conflict within an organisation. Now, wouldn't that money be better spent on colleague development, colleague coaching, retention, engagement, lots of great things? And on average, that works out £1,000 per colleague in the UK just spent on conflict. 10 million people a year are affected in the UK through conflict. That's 10 million people that are hurt in work, taking it home with them, affecting their mental health and well-being. 900,000 people are off sick each year. So away from work, off sick. So that's a big cost to the organisation. And then other people have to pick up that work. And then we affect other people picking up that work because they would say we're shouldering that workload. And the last one, which I think is a really good fact, is 590 million to 2.3 billion people are affected by presenteeism. So they're in work, but they're not doing their best. And that's through conflict or through issues. So our job is that we want to help from a mental health and wellbeing point of view, but we also want to help from a cost and get that money put back into those colleagues and the organisation to grow and flourish. So what I'd like to do today is just to share with you now the structure of what we train. And the course we train, depending on the size of the group of the colleagues, could be 4 days or it could be 5 days. If we have more colleagues, sometimes it can go to 6 days. However, we usually look between 4 to 5 days. And this is the structure that we would train for our colleagues. So first of all, the chemistry call. That's a call that takes place a day before with colleagues to walk through logistics, to walk through what the mediation process is, and also for them to start to build trust with you as the mediator. What we don't touch here is actually any issues or concerns or what's actually gone on. This is more just a chemistry call. They get to know you, they get to see you. Now, what you'll notice through the course and how we train colleagues is that everything we do for one party has to be identical for the other party. So, for example, if the chemistry call we use, instead of 30 minutes, we go to 35 minutes, we have to offer 35 minutes to the other colleague as well. So we have to be really clear and fair in the process. Now, let's pretend that we're working with the colleagues on a day now to do the rest of the process. We start the day with one colleague coming in first, which we start with our open discussion. This is usually 45 minutes to an hour, really uncovering the issues of what that colleague's gone through. You'll notice here, both the colleagues are kept separate at the moment. The idea is we really want to hear that person's story, that version of events, their version of the truth, and we go through some really excellent questioning techniques to make sure it's there and works for you. We then go over to then do that exactly the same with party 2, if that makes sense. So we then go through there for that party to go through that discussion and really work with that colleague again, hearing their version of events. Now, while we're with party 2, party 1 is writing a statement. We coach them how to write a statement. It's usually 2 pages long or no more than 5 minutes, but about the behaviours they've experienced from the other person, the impact it's had, and the needs they require, not the wants. We coach through our course about needs rather than wants. When we finish with party 2 and gone through their open discussion, we go back to party 1 and we get them to read their statement out to us. And we work through to listen to that statement, how they feel about reading it out loud, because all what's been in their head so far is now down on paper, and it's also they've read it to a third party. What we're looking in there for is any harmful language, anything damaging that could then be affected by the other person listening to that statement. And we're also listening out to words that the other colleague, would they understand what they mean? We then go back to party 2 to do exactly the same as we've done for party 1, and then we break for lunch to give both colleagues time to amend their written words or statements for that period of time. We bring them back in the afternoon. So after they've had lunch separately, we bring them back in the afternoon, and it's the first time they would have seen each other. We get them to read their statements out to each other, which we call uninterrupted speaking time. And then we ask some really good professional questions afterwards to bring their relationship closer together. We allow them after that time to have a really good open discussion. So they get to have a really good chat. They get to talk through their issues, concerns, what they've heard, etc. But we're guiding them to move forward. There's lots of different techniques we show you on the course, how to keep people moving forward rather than going back into the past, which some people want to stay in the past, whereas what we're talking about moving forward. The last session, which we work with them, which is called stage 5, the ownership, is once they come up with ideas about how they want to work together in the future, what does that look like? How does that look in the office or back on remote? What's actually they're going to help each other and support each other to be back and also hold each other accountable to? By the end of the day, the next day, we write a kind of written agreement for the colleagues. So capturing all those actions, and we write a written agreement for the colleagues, which they've got 4 days to respond back to. But that's their contract to hold each other accountable. We work with the colleagues as well at the end of the day that they're not going to keep coming back for mediation. But how did actually, if the problem goes wrong again, which inevitably it will, because there are bumps in the road, we're not going to suddenly be magicians and repair it straight away. But how do they speak to each other again once that's happened? So that's the structure we walk through over the 5 days, and we break it down bit by bit for our colleagues. And people like within our courses that we break the structure down so they get some real time to understand actually how to be a really good professional mediator. The course itself is accredited by our partner CPD verification services. Really great. They allow us the freedom to get a good mixture of practical knowledge and also theoretical knowledge within the course. So we're delighted. And our reputation, we strongly believe that all of our work we do is accredited either through ILM or CPD. So before I go into the last couple of bits, this is how the course looks. So the structure of, and I've done it here as a 5-day course. So day 1 is when we see people super excited about being a mediator. They go, yeah, I can do this. So we teach them really the theory of conflict and understanding conflict, what it is, constructive, destructive conflict, how the mind works, how cortisol fills our body through in conflict. So we give some great hints and tips from that point of view. We then start to move into the process of the chemistry call, and then also then this kind of first stage about the open dialogue. We start to move into that point of view. Now, I'll put it straight out there straight away. There is role plays within the course, and people have found that we use real life scenarios that they practice, and that gives them credibility from that feedback. You'll hear from Jo in a minute about her experience with the role plays. Day 2 is an interesting day because people suddenly go, oh, this mediation works a bit harder than I thought. But it's going to be. We got people's lives in our hands. This is a true profession that we want to really look after our colleagues. So day 2, we have a great reflection, more or less an action learning set about how people are feeling for that to move forward. We then start to move into stage 3 and stage 4, and there's lots of practice throughout the day and lots of demonstrations from myself or colleagues that we have consult for us. By the end of day 2 is then when people go, I can do this. I get what a mediation is involved. I can do this now. Day 3, we have another action learning set just to refresh on the day and what's been learned. And then we move into stage 3 and 4 to stage 3, 4 and 5 to really bring the mediation together. Day 4 and 5 is where you then are assessed, and that is actually being a mediator. Now, it might be one day day 4, you're a mediator, day 5, you're then a party. So you get the experience of being a party and also a mediator as well. And people find that so rich to be on both sides of the fence of the feeling it's like to go through a mediation. What we do differently at the end of the mediation is we ask you to do a short portfolio, which is all about your daily learning. And that is literally, we give you 2 weeks to do. Some other organisations, it can be months afterwards and quite a lengthy, detailed process of written words. We've taken the bit about being agile and practical that actually we just want to gather your rich learning. And that will take you probably an hour, 2 hours max of your time to complete after that. After that portfolio is completed, we mark it and then we push the button and then you are an accredited mediator. And that comes with a certificate, the accreditation, and then also which you can put on your email sign off as well. So that's the course there. So what I'm going to do just before we go into the next part, I just want to share with you actually some comments from one of the colleagues that attended the video, that attended the course. So I'm just going to show on here. And I'm just going to take it, Jen, I'll just take it that people can hear. I'll press play, but Jen, just give me a shout if people can't hear at all or you can't hear. What did you like about the course, or what did you find about the course from your perspective?
Well, I think I remember saying to you at the time, I was really nervous about doing the course. I thought,
Yeah.
oh, 4 days, it's going to be really intense, really long days. We were on Teams, weren't we? And that made me a bit nervous as well, thinking, how am I going to be able to cope with learning all day on Teams and working with somebody that I didn't know very well? But it was as soon as we started the course, I mean, firstly the time flew, and I felt very safe and able to be honest about what I was thinking and feeling throughout the course. And from a communication perspective, I thought you were really clear throughout, and we got loads of opportunity to practice what you were saying. The thought of role play was not my thing at all. I thought, oh no, don't do role play, don't like that. But I think I got into it, don't you? I think my skills came into all, to be honest. So, but no, it was it was really interactive. We had a lot of fun actually. 4 days of I didn't think there'd be lots of laughs along the way, but there were. But I took so much from it in terms of skills that I now use on an everyday, not just when it's a formal mediation process, but literally on an everyday basis when I'm faced with different situations, whether it be personal or at work, to be honest.
And I really like that bit about their life we teach. It's not just you turn them on, I must do it as a mediator and turn it on then. It's actually their life skills that we work through that helps you A, in your day job, but B, at home, outside work, etc. That kind of helps from a conflict resolution point of view, but just a conversation point of view as well, isn't it? So for that.
And I think it's made me a lot calmer as well when you are faced with a conflict situation, whereas I might have beforehand seen red very quickly. Certainly from a personal perspective, I have noticed that I'm able to stand back now and go, right, okay, I'm just going to calm down, and then I'm going to be able to deal with this more constructively.
Yeah, and it's great kind of to move to your comfort zone. What did you find that really stretched you?
Well, I think it was, I mean, there was lots of hints and tips that I took from the course along the way, but I think it's what I really found interesting from my perspective. But it's not my job to fix everything, and that was a really different way of thinking. And I think we discussed it a lot one day, didn't we, on the course, because it was a bit of a light bulb moment, which is a bit bizarre, really. But I think in the past I've been very, as HR, people come to me and I almost fix their problems for them, whereas this has really challenged my thinking about that and actually challenged the way I work. And I do work differently now in terms of how I can help people to facilitate and fix their own issues as opposed to doing it for them. And it's certainly made me view scenarios in a different way.
Because it's that part. So just pause there. So really grateful of Jo sharing with her. That's one of the podcasts we did with Jo. So please feel free to have a look on kind of our YouTube channel. But that just gives you a bit more detail about what Jo's experienced from the course. And what I'll do is I'll just open up now, because it's the last part, of any questions or thoughts or what you've heard today from the course, etc., or the webinar, that I'll open up to see any feedback or questions that people have got. Please feel free to use the chat or open up or come off the line. Any questions or anything you've noticed from the course today or the webinar?
There's a couple in the chat there, Steve.
Oh, sorry. Okay, let me just go back. So, okay, so Sushel's dropped off. So, okay, if I go, so the questions we've got is, so Franco, if one of the parties start talking about this dispute during the chemistry call, do we park it without antagonising? Yes, we do, Franco. So we use a way that we would say to a colleague, I'm just going to pause you there. The purpose of the call today is this. So we do it from that point of view, but we do it in a very nice way that the colleague also sees the boundaries. Because what will happen is, and we call it hooks or triggers, some colleagues will try and hook you in as the mediator to take you off course. So what we do is, from that point of view, the colleague will go, actually, I see that you're trusting, I see that you're helpful, but I know there's boundaries and I'm not hooking you into this conflict. Because what we do see is newer mediators sometimes get hooked into the conflict when they don't need to be. Would that answer that, Franco? Yeah, cool. Yeah, really good. Nikki is there. So, Nikki, are there any circumstances when you wouldn't advise mediation? Are there any issues, other steps that can be used to help people be more prepared or open to mediation? Yeah, I think there's a really good bit here, Nikki. So, a client we worked with recently said about mediation, and we said that's not right or appropriate. Pure reason being it'd been so damaged and so harmful over that period of time that mediation would have made the situation totally worse. So we kind of declined to do that. But what we recommended to them was actually some coaching or support individually for those colleagues to see what they need before even getting to a mediation sample. And those colleagues now are going through coaching and working through with us. But there's a variety of different techniques around restorative justice, around colleagues working with them, rather than just going through mediation. Because when mediation has gone, or you try to introduce it when it's so damaging, it just makes the situation worse. So I think, would that be fair, Nikki, from your point and your experience as well? I know you're mute.
Yeah, no, it really would, Stephen. Certainly I've seen people who've been bullied, and it would have been absolutely inappropriate to put them in the room with the, alleged bully at that time.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
No, spot on. So, and I think this is the bit, one of our overriding principles when we work with colleagues is around making sure it's a safe environment for everybody. And that's you as the mediator and the colleagues as well. We make sure it's a safe environment. Karen, I saw you come off your camera. Hello, lovely to see you,
Yeah,
Karen.
hello, and you.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Yeah. Did you have a question, Karen?
Yeah, it was a bit on the back of Nikki's, because I've come across that situation before where you think, do you, don't you? But do you also have any principles around whether the mediator knows the individuals or not? Is there better to have a complete impartiality, some knowledge of each other, or is there no really guardrails to kind of operate in, really?
No, so there is some guardrails we'd operate in that usually would say that you're completely independent. So if I took your organisation, X amount of mediators that people you wouldn't know, you deploy them in.
Yeah.
So across functions and sections, pure reason being you start to get in them bias. So let's say, for example, if I go back of the CIPD report in 2020 about managers make things worse, what we see is a manager, someone could walk in the room and they go, "Oh, hello, mate, how are you? Good to see you." The other person, they go, "Oh, hello." Already they've created a divide. So we encourage that actually the mediator is independent, impartial, and that protects the mediator, but also then the colleagues go, "I'm being treated fairly."
Yeah,
Would that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, good. So I'll just, not to drag out anything today, but any other questions or anything else anybody's got, or any other feedback about what they've seen on the course or views from that perspective today? So I'll just go around from that perspective. Franco, does the call make sense there about the mediation, the course, etc., from your point of view?
Yeah, perfectly. The only thing I was wondering, obviously, you work and I work in a very big organization where it would be very easy to find someone independent. But where you got like small businesses or small organization, would you then use, for example, an organization like yours to do the mediation rather than train people to do it? Because
Correct.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So we get to work with large organizations, small organizations that would say, look, we're not going to train mediators up because of the cost, but we'll deploy you in. So we've got an organization we're working with at the moment, which is around about 400 employees. They've said that they don't want to train, but they want to use us. So that's where they bring us in. If that makes sense. Yeah, good. Karen, any other questions or feedback on the call today, or does it make sense?
Yeah, totally. It was just reaffirming some principles I'd picked up previously. So I think I'd gone on an ACAS mediator program years and years ago. So hearing lots of similar things, but yeah, food for thought.
Yeah, good. Well, that's the idea of it. Yeah, good food for thought. Nikki, any other questions or thoughts today from yourself, Nikki?
No, nothing from me, Stephen. You've answered my questions. Thank you.
Fab. So just to say thank you ever so much. The call, as we recorded, we'll be sending out, and apologies about times today, but we think it was the British summertime knocked LinkedIn a bit, so we've got a bit of a problem there. But thank you ever so much today for joining. We look forward to hear from you. Please message us if you've got any other questions from that perspective. But Jenny and I just hang on for a couple more minutes if people drop off. But can I just say, enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the sunshine. I think it's sunny outside today where I look. But can I just say thank you for joining and look forward to seeing you in the future. So thank you ever so much, everyone.
Take care. Bye bye.